haven't you all met?
We met at the coffee house in Johnson City. That one everybody knows.
I always tell people about it.
You know that one? It's not there anymore.
Oh, it's not.
No, it's called the Acoustic Coffee House.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's wild.
Spirit. Spirit. Yeah.
In the name of the God who created us, in the name of the Christ who teaches us, in the name of the Spirit who journeys alongside us throughout our lives, welcome home, children of God. Peace be with you. Good morning and welcome to First Presbyterian Church this morning as we gather together as God's people in God's name. It is good to be here this morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. I know that meant showing up to church an hour with an hour less sleep last night, whether you're online or in person, so thank you for being here today. A reminder to, if you are here in person, if you would please just take a moment and sign those blue friendship registers. If you are joining online, would you please just let us know you're here in the YouTube chat. And again, as I remind us every Sunday, one of the reasons we do that is because every week we commit to giving $1 for every person worshiping with us, whether that's here in person or online, that we'll give $1 for every person worshiping with us to a different local or international ministry. This morning is a second Sunday of the month, so the recipient of our Every One Counts offering is Assistance and Resource Ministry. It is a wonderful community ministry here in Elizabethton, right down the road from us behind Ingalls. It helps to provide non-perishable goods and other assistance to residents throughout Carter County. Simply by joining us for worship this morning, you are helping to support the work of ARM. And so I thank you for the gift of your presence. A reminder that the other half of Every One Counts is to try and help us, remind us of the importance of practice, and especially the practice of generosity. So the idea is that we'll give $1 for everybody worshiping, and we invite you to, when the offering plate comes around, give $1. Practice generosity by sharing of what you have. And in so doing, we help to reinforce that spiritual practice for ourselves, and we help to support local ministries like ARM. And so thank you for the gift of your time and your resources and your presence today. A couple other quick announcements. I'm going to turn it over to Jim here in just a second to remind us about One Great Hour of Sharing coming up in Easter. But very quickly before that, after church today, it's the second Sunday of the month, so it means we have our monthly benediction. That follows the benediction of just a short coffee time. There's warm coffee downstairs, and a chilly, rainy morning. There's some light snacks. Please stick around, join us, and just a chance to visit and fellowship right downstairs after the service. That's today. Also, reminder that the Sunday after, or the weekend after Easter, that's going to be April the 14th, 15th, and 16th. We are joining with Covenant Presbyterian Church in Johnson City, Jonesboro Presbyterian, and Watauga Avenue in Johnson City to have a retreat at Holston Camp. There are some sign-up forms up here. If you are interested, you have the option of going for the weekend and spending a weekend at the camp right up the road in Banner Elk, just hanging out, enjoying beautiful creation and hiking around. Or you can just go for the day on Saturday. And either way, forms up here. Ginger is helping to coordinate that for our church. So if you have questions about it, Ginger's a great one to ask, though the informational meeting is not for another week, so maybe wait till after that to ask Ginger particular questions. But please mark that on your calendars. Hope you can join us. Jim, you want to share with us about One Great Hour of Sharing?
Yes, thank you, Brian. We still have the fish banks in the pews closest to the aisle. There's also the offertory envelopes. If you just want to give whatever you can give, it's combined with other people's gifts and used where it's most needed. There's also in the narthex a Presbyterian giving catalog. And there's a few, if you're worried about being in too high a tax bracket at the end of the year, there's a few that'll fix you that way. And then there's some very reasonable ones. One that struck me when reading the material was millions of hours in underdeveloped countries are spent with people simply going to get water. And, you know, the new cans for them might mean everything. So there's very simple things that really help, and I've never been so grateful to just turn the tap on and see water come out. So there are numerous ways that you can contribute, and no matter what state your finances are in, whatever you can do is greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody aware of any other joys or concerns, anything to share? Are you enough for something else? Okay, sure. Then, friends, we continue this morning as we do every week, which is to remind ourselves of the basic core of the gospel that we celebrate, and that is that God loves us all and all people without condition and without exception, because in our unique and beautiful diversity, we all reflect the image of God. God's image welcomes us in our diverse sexual and gender expressions, including lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, straight, male, female, non-binary. God's love welcomes our diverse ethnicities, black, brown, white, Asian, indigenous. God's love welcomes our questioning, our belief or unbelief, our exploration of the richness of human knowledge found in science, in diverse religions and spiritualities. God's love welcomes us whether we are rich or poor, young or old, able-bodied or disabled, suffering or rejoicing, because again, God's love welcomes all people without condition and without exception. We give thanks for this ancestral Cherokee land on which we are gathered today and for the loving waters of the Watauga and the Doe River watersheds that nourish us. And as we continue this time of worship, we pledge ourselves to work for truth and reconciliation among all peoples and respect for one another and for creation in all we say and do. So let us worship together.
Sweet, sweet Spirit in
Today's invitation to worship surrounds us daily, especially in springtime. And the selection is from A Timbered Choir by Wendell Berry. I go among trees and sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet around me like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. Then, what is afraid of me comes and lives a while in my sight. What it fears in me leaves me, and the fear of me leaves it. It sings, and I hear its song.
I invite us to rise in body or spirit as we're able, and we'll join together in singing our opening hymn, number 370, in your purple hymnals here. I invite us to take a moment and just celebrate community. We'll share the peace of Christ with one another. Take a moment and greet one another in whatever ways you're comfortable with in pandemic times. If you're online, please enjoy the slideshow of friendly, smiling faces.
So it didn't make any sense. So I was like, never mind.
We turn now to our time of meditation. And our invocation this morning, our invitation to worship, is a perfect invitation to meditation. Listen to what Wendell Berry says. I go among trees and sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet around me like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. And then what is afraid of me comes and lives a while in my sight. And we could continue, but that will do for us. We spend a lot of time in life looking for things, longing for things, seeking things, working hard to get them, or in some cases, hard to get rid of them, but always working. And it's a good idea every now and then to see what would happen if we tried something different. And the something different might be nothing at all. To just, as they say in Japan, sit still and do no thing. To do nothing. Not the easiest thing in the world, though. It's fine as an idea, but as a practice, sitting still turns out not to be the easiest thing because our minds are inclined to be busy. It's their nature. There's nothing the matter with them. But this is a practice that we can grow into. And so we meditate every Sunday in church to practice stillness and to see what we can learn from stillness. And you might even consider meditating daily so that you have a daily practice of stillness. With that as an invitation to meditation this morning, I invite us all to assume a posture of meditation, because a long time ago, people figured out that although the mind is slippery and sneaky and busy, if we begin with the body, which is, believe it or not, a little more cooperative, we can help the mind to become calmer and quieter. So let's make the body calm and quiet. Please, as you're able, sit erect and don't slump. Your mind recognizes this as a posture of attentiveness. But if reclining would be more comfortable for you, then by all means, recline in the pew or wherever you're sitting. Let your body settle. Feel its weight upon whatever you're sitting. And remember that that weight is quite literally evidence of a hug between you and Mother Earth, between Mother Earth's great magnetic field and your body's tiny but very real magnetic field. That sensation of weight is a hug between you and our planet home. Let your shoulders relax and drop toward the floor and draw them back slightly as though you're trying to bring your shoulder blades together. Sitting this way, sitting tall, sitting quietly and at ease with shoulders back. What does this feel like to you? What does this posture feel like? Isn't it a feeling of quiet confidence, of quiet dignity? It is the expression of your true nature, and it is the embodiment of faith, because what if faith? What is faith if not quiet confidence in God, in life, and yes, in yourself? And now, to allow the mind to go more deeply into the practice of stillness, I invite all of us to do one of the most universal of all meditative practices, watching the breath. So easy to describe, so simple, and yet it will give you, I think, a very enjoyable challenge. Just notice as your breath flows in through your nose, preferably. If you're all stuffed up, it'll have to be your mouth, but preferably it flows in through your nose. And then when it's ready, it flows out through your nose. There could be a pause between in-breath and out-breath, or out-breath and in-breath. The key is let the breath do the breathing. Don't try to control your breathing in any way. Just let it do its thing. It needs no help from you. Your only job is to notice as the breath flows in and flows out. Now, thoughts will arise as you're doing this practice. That's natural. As soon as you notice one arising, immediately return your attention to the breath, to just noticing what's happening. Return again and again and again to the breath. However many times the attention strays, that many times you will firmly and gently return to the breath. And so in silence, let us meditate. And now in the calm and quiet of this moment, would you please call to mind a person or a group of people, or perhaps our whole world, who you know this morning stands in special need of the healing peace of God, the peace that passes all understanding. And in your own way, call upon God, call upon life itself to bless them, just as they need to be blessed. Amen.
The reading this morning comes from Colossians 1:15 through 17. Christ is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or powers. All things have been created through him and for him. He himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together.
Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Upon the mountain, when my Lord spoke, out of God's mouth came fire and smoke. Looked all around me, it looked so fine. My Lord, if all was mine. We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in His presence on holy ground. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Joy and rivers, chilly and cold, it chills the body, but not the soul. There is but one train upon this track. It runs to heaven and then right back. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit
Amen. Thank you, choir. Beautiful anthem this morning. Appreciate it, Bill. Thank you for that meditation. Aubrey, didn't see where you ended up sitting down. Aubrey, thanks for reading this morning too. So this morning we're wrapping up our series where we're going through looking at the different points of progressive Christianity. Those 5 points are in your bulletin again this morning if you want to look back at them and reflect on them. Today we're going to look at the 4th item on the list. We started out with number 5 a few weeks ago. I kind of did these out of order. So we're finishing with number 4 today. That we embrace the insights of contemporary science and strive to protect the earth and ensure its integrity and sustainability. So for several weeks this spring, or this winter I guess we're still in, we've been celebrating science and faith, science and spirituality, especially downstairs in our adult forum. Ryan Dennison talked to us for a couple of weeks about the evolution of the universe from the Big Bang up to the formation of chemicals necessary for life. Jeff Wardeska shared with us about the role those chemicals play in forming the building blocks of life, building blocks necessary for life, or at least life on earth as we know it. If you missed any of those lectures, you're interested in them, by the way, they are on our YouTube channel. You can go back and watch them. Fascinating. And so, but we've spent a little time this spring reflecting on all the pieces of the past 13.77 billion years that have all miraculously come together to make our existence possible. I mean, for it to be possible for us to be sitting here this morning. As we've thought about all that, one thing in particular for me has popped up again and again. That these building blocks of life, the stuff that we are made up of, every atom within us, that all of that is not separate from the rest of creation, from the rest of the universe, that every one of those atoms is a part of the universe just as much as any other atom around us, and rocks and trees and skies and seas, to quote our hymn this morning, are a part of the same universe. That we are all a part of that one universe, and the stuff inside of us is the same stuff that makes up everything else in the universe, or at least everything else in the observable universe, since we don't really know what's in about 95% of the universe that we call dark matter or dark energy, but what we know of, it's all the same stuff. And at some point, when we cease to exist in our earthly form, the stuff that makes us up will return back to the earth and eventually back into creation to be a part of something else in the universe. So we are not separate from creation, we are a part of creation. There's a Catholic priest named Thomas Berry. He died in 2009, and he was considered in many ways to kind of be a pioneer of evolutionary spirituality. He wrote a lot in the 80s and 90s. And his writings reflected this deep belief that a deep spirituality always resulted from the awareness of our interconnectedness and the interdependence of all of creation. That's what spirituality was for him, was that awareness of the connectedness between us and everything around us. And he wrote in an article titled "The Spirituality of the Earth" that we desperately need a spirituality that emerges out of a reality deeper than just ourselves. A spirituality even deeper than life. A spirituality that is as deep as the earth process itself. A spirituality born out of the solar system and even out of the heavens beyond the solar system. There, out in the stars, is where the primordial elements take shape. A spirituality, he continues, is a mode of being in which not only the divine and the human commune with each other, but in which we discover ourselves in the universe, and the universe discovers itself in us. Now, I acknowledge that Christianity doesn't bear all of the blame, of course, but we, especially in the West, have had this long history of kind of viewing the earth as something that's separate from us. Like we're here and the earth is this other thing apart from us, and that it's given to us as this consumable and convenient gift to support humankind for our time here on earth, but that's really why the earth exists. I think as we are experiencing with increasing extreme climate events, that view is devastatingly myopic and self-centered. And so Barry's insight is that the approach of thinking about creation as a consumable resource, rather than as an intimate part of us, is not only the thing that's destroying our planet, necessary to our survival, but it is, I mean, we know that physically, but his argument is that it's also spiritually deficient. That we cannot connect deeply with the Creator, with God, while at the same time ignoring our connection, our intimate connection with creation. There's a spiritual practice among indigenous peoples called the seventh generation principle. Any of you all heard of this? So the seventh generation principle, I did a little Googling on it. It's a part of the constitution of the Iroquois nation. And at least from what I've read, that the document of the Iroquois Confederacy is the oldest living participatory, continuous participatory democracy on earth. But anyway, the seventh generation principle affirms that in every deliberation we make, every time we're thinking about a decision, especially a big decision, that what we should do is to consider the impact of our decisions on the next 7 generations. Can you imagine how our decisions about what we buy, what we drive, what we eat, how we live, how differently we might live if we considered how every decision we made impacted our descendants 150 years from now? I mean, we have been celebrating science and spirituality for several weeks here. You might remember one of the early principles, I say early, about 500 years old, Newton or whatever, that Newton's third law of motion, every action creates a reaction. There's a result to everything. Whatever we do on earth, there's a reaction. And right now, I think what we experience in a lot of these climate events is that the earth is reacting. So, for much of the history of Christianity, we've had a spirituality that focused only on what place we would inhabit after we die. I think what Thomas Berry and creation spirituality are trying to push us toward is recognizing that that kind of spirituality is very shallow, that it leaves us missing the very thing that connects us to the Creator, a love of and for creation. And so Aubrey read for us this morning a short little excerpt from Colossians. It's a letter written to the church, or some churches in Asia Minor in the second half of the first century. But I found it interesting because the author celebrates this unity, this oneness of all creation. Everything is a part of God. Things visible, things invisible. All things that are created, everything that exists is a part of God, including us and including the creation around us. That's all a part of the Creator. As long as we continue to see ourselves separate from the earth, we'll spin our wheels fighting about how much we can exploit the earth's resources before irrevocably dooming life on earth. But we know the truth is that when the earth is sick, that we are sick. Not only are we dependent on a healthy earth for pleasure, we are also intrinsically interconnected with the health of the earth. The earth's welfare is our welfare, physically and spiritually. To quote Thomas Berry again, if the Rhine, the Yellow, the Mississippi rivers are changed to poison, so too are the rivers and the trees, and the birds and in the humans changed to poison almost simultaneously. There is only one river on the planet Earth, and it has multiple tributaries. many of which flow through the veins of sentient creatures. So I'm recognizing a couple of unifying themes for me as we've explored these points of progressive Christianity. One is that I know one of our mantras in this church, one of the things we say often, is that following Jesus is more about practice than belief. And it's not like those two things are separate. What we believe informs our practice, our actions. But I do think the Jesus that we find in the Gospels seems to be a lot more concerned about how we act and how we treat others, how we view the world beyond an us and a them duality, and how we live into an interconnectedness with creation, with all people. That seems to be more of Jesus' concern than what we believe about him or about God, at least until those beliefs inform how we act and live in this world. But another part that's emerged for me, or that's been reinforced for me, is that I think Christianity has a role to play, a very important role, in how we approach and deal with the problems that we face in our communities and on our planet. And not just Christianity, more broadly, spirituality. But we're here because we're seeking or trying to follow a particular spiritual path that we think Jesus teaches us. So I'll talk about that one. But spirituality has a role to play in helping us move forward in positive ways in our relationship with other people, with creation. Rethinking our relationship with the earth, with the generations that come after us. That's a spiritual quest. Responding to others. We talked about this last week a little bit. Responding to other people, especially people who are different than us, who disagree with us. Responding to them with a sense of awe and wonder and welcome and love rather than animosity and an otherness. Rather than defaulting into our natural tendency for tribalism. Learning to move beyond that and respond in awe and wonder and love, that is a spiritual quest. Approaching other people, other faith traditions, looking to science and art and poetry as ways to broaden our experience of the divine, rather than things that threaten our beliefs, those are spiritual issues. So I celebrate science and faith because I think it is a deeper spirituality that helps to bring a unity to all of that, and that provides a critical piece of our ability to function and continue to survive and thrive in the world. Martin Buber was a Jewish philosopher who lived in the late 19th and mid-20th centuries. He grew up in Austria, he fled to Israel after Hitler rose to power. And he wrote of this spiritual concept that he called I, thou. And the idea that he talks about is that we humans are born seeing and experiencing the world and others in what he calls an I-it relationship. We are the subject and everything else around us is kind of the object. It's something external to us, separate from us. So I have my boundaries and everything outside of me is other. But he writes that a deeper, richer spirituality comes as we grow in moving from that I-it understanding to an I-thou relationship. And an I-thou relationship is where we learn to see ourselves as a part of the world that consists of mutuality and reciprocity. I-thou recognizes that we are in relationship with all creatures, all creation, the whole earth, the whole solar system, the heavens beyond it. That's a spirituality that leads us toward an experience of the oneness of all things. And that developing spirituality, that recognition, that practice of spirituality, I really believe may be the very thing that we need most in this world to change our relationships with other people and with creation into something more helpful and more sustainable. Blessed be. Amen. We've talked a lot in this series about the importance of practice. Our spirituality is a practice. It's, as Bill reminds us in meditation, it doesn't come naturally. It's something we have to put effort into, put attention into. Generosity is a spiritual practice, and it's something we have to put energy into, put effort into. And so one of the ways we try to encourage ourselves to all do that is to practice generosity as we come together to worship. So offering plates go around not just because the church needs to be funded to do stuff, but because it's part of a spiritual practice. So whether you are putting $1 in this morning or nothing in this morning or check or whatever, just invite you to reflect on the practice of generosity in your own life in this moment of offering. So let's receive our tithes and offerings. $291, Spirit of Gentleness. It's a great hymn, I think, because it reminds us that the divine Spirit is in everything, and that's part of what connects everything, all of creation. So we invite us to remain standing in body or spirit as we're able. We'll sing together Spirit of Gentleness, number 291 in your hymnals.
Spirit stable, you cried from a hill. Then you whispered in silence when the whole world was still. And down in the city, you called once again when you blew through your people on the rush of the wind. Spirit, Spirit of gentleness, flow through the wilderness, calling and free. Spirit, Spirit of restlessness, stir me from placidness, wind on the sea. You call from tomorrow, you break ancient streams from the bondage of sorrow, the captives and streams. Our women sweep visions, our men clear their eyes with all due decisions. Your people arise. Spirit, Spirit of gentleness, roll through the wilderness, calling and free. Spirit, Spirit of restlessness, stirring from placidness, wind on the sea.
As we've started our new tradition here, let me invite us to take your bulletin with you so you have the words. We're going to offer a benediction to one another. Let's kind of gather in a circle around sanctuary. If we can see one another as we offer that. And so my charge or encouragement to all of us as we go out from here, think about that Iroquois principle, the seventh generation principle, and if we can begin to incorporate that into our spirituality, I think, into the way that we approach the world. Just one small decision at a time, think of what a difference that can make if we begin to think about how decisions we make impact those around us and those who come after us. So, that said, let's offer a blessing to one another.